Welcome back to Outdoor Adventure Training. My name is Mikey Bell, and today we're diving into packs, pounds, and percentages, how to train effectively to carry a heavy backpack in the backcountry. If you've ever wondered how heavy should my pack be, or how can I prepare better to carry a heavy backpack for an upcoming adventure, you're in the right place, and we're gonna be exploring all of that and more in this video. My goal is not to deliver some crazy hacks on how to make your pack lighter, but rather how to make your body more resilient so you can feel good and reduce the likelihood of injury when you're out in the backcountry. This conversation is inspired by a recent trip up to British Columbia where we knocked off a couple big ski-focused objectives. We started with the Garibaldi Traverse near Squamish, a 3-day traverse covering 30 miles, 6,000 feet of elevation gain, a lot of glacier travel as well. And we followed this up with the Spearhead Traverse, which is a classic traverse in the Whistler Blackcomb backcountry, about 25 miles and 8,000 feet of elevation gain. And over both of these objectives, our packs were very heavy for overnight winter camping, glacier travel, and all the tools necessary to do that safely and effectively makes for a heavy load. So while we were out there, we were reflecting heavily on what can we do to prepare better for objectives like this and ultimately maximize our time on this sort of an adventure. I also wrote a very detailed blog post which can be found on our website at outdooradventuretraining.com. There's a link in the description below so you can review all of these materials that we're going to cover today. A question I get a lot is, how heavy should my pack be? And of course the answer is, it depends on what you're doing, where you're traveling, how long you're going for, what the weather's like, and of course, your level of fitness. But that said, this is a quick guideline of about where your pack weight should be relative to your body weight. So we're looking at percentage of your total body weight. So if you're 150 pounds for a day hike, maybe you're at about 15 pounds or less. And then of course, as we move into an overnighter or a 3-day backpacking trip, a 5-day backpacking trip, eventually getting more technical into mountaineering and glacial ski mountaineering, this is where our backpacks can really start tipping the scales and getting a little bit heavier. So if the question, how heavy should my pack be, is kind of irrelevant, what is the question? A better question might be, what is my body capable of carrying? And I'm not saying that your pack should be as heavy as you could carry, but it's good to understand what our upper threshold is before we increase the risk of injury and decrease our performance. And we can calculate this using this simple pack weight percentage formula. So we're trying to calculate the percentage of our pack weight relative to our body weight by taking our total pack weight, trailhead ready, food, water, fuel, all your layers measured in pounds or kilos, divided by, using the same metric, your body weight as recent as possible, multiplied by 100 will give you the pack weight percentage, the percentage of your body weight that's actually on your back. And of course, the higher the number, the more difficult and the more challenging the effort will be. At the bottom, we have 3 different examples with individuals of all 3 different weights and all 3 different pack weights. And as you can see, the pack weight percentage changes quite a bit as well. So someone who's 170 pounds carrying a 34-pound pack is a very manageable load, while someone who is only carrying 7 pounds more but only weighs 130 pounds, their pack weight percentage is much higher and getting much more difficult. While this is a simple calculation, we developed this trail load calculator to quickly identify about where you are depending on your objective and to identify where you might start to enter this danger zone. So as you can see, carrying less than 20% of your body weight is generally manageable for most well-seasoned hikers that have a decent baseline of fitness. Should be able to carry up to 20% of their body weight without impacting their risk of injury or their performance too much. But as we start to taper into the yellow and into the orange, this is where it does require some degree of training. Having a robust baseline of strength and aerobic fitness will make sure that you're staying safe while carrying loads up to 30% of your body weight. Now, as we increase that load even more, we're really increasing the likelihood of injury, and we're really gonna feel it on the performance side of things. I'm sure many of you can relate. If you've ever tried walking uphill with a very heavy backpack that might be 30 or 35% of your body weight, you are going much, much slower than you would with a light day pack. Now, I'm not saying that you can't achieve these numbers. It just requires a very high level of sport-specific training and fitness to do this safely and sustainably. So after our ski traverses, Emily and I were really curious to crunch some numbers and see where we landed on this chart. Now, I started the Garibaldi Neve Traverse at about 190 pounds, carrying a 60-pound pack, which was about 31.5% of my body weight. Now, I'm a pretty well-seasoned pack carrier. I've been a professional mountain guide for 8 years. I've done a lot of winter camping, glacier travel, and mountaineering, and I like to bring extra stuff. Being a guide, I usually have a bulky first aid kit and extra rope, things of that nature that inherently make the pack heavier, so I felt pretty well prepared to carry the 60-pound pack. Now, Emily doesn't have that same level of experience, and she's much lighter. She's a smaller frame, 112 pounds, and her pack was 40 pounds, which relative to her body weight is 35% of her weight that she was carrying, which by this classification would be a very heavy load, increasing the risk of injury, and requires very specific strength, which we'll get into later in this conversation. As we regrouped and had about a day of rest before getting into the Spearhead Traverse, we tried to divvy up the gear to make these numbers more manageable for both of us. We had both lost about a couple pounds from the Garibaldi Traverse, just high effort, carrying those heavy packs, under calorie, and not fully recovered. But my pack was 2 pounds heavier, Emily's was 7 pounds lighter, and you can see the difference it made, especially for Emily, bringing her pack weight percentage down to just 30%, which was very manageable, and she reported this feeling much lighter, easier to travel, especially in the terrain we were in, on skis, glaciated terrain, technical skiing. All of this to say, again, your pack weight alone does not matter. It's all relative to the terrain you're in, your level of fitness and experience, and your strength to weight ratio. It's also worth noting that as we increase our pack weight, our rate of perceived exertion, or how difficult we think it is, goes up significantly as we cross this threshold. And anybody that's carried a heavy pack can attest to this. Usually you don't really notice it too much. It's getting a little bit heavier, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is really heavy. I'm slowing way down. I can't go any faster than I am now. So when you're planning your trip and getting ready and contemplating which things you're going to bring, consider these numbers and try to stay below that 30% number. Now, I mentioned this isn't a conversation about gear. I'm not delivering hacks on how to make your pack lighter. That's not the goal of this conversation. But I'm also not suggesting that you should go ahead and bring a bunch of luxury items because you can travel up to 30%. The true essence of this conversation is for you to understand the implications of carrying heavy backpacks in the mountains. So of course, there's a lot of variables that can add weight to your pack, whether it's the terrain, the length of trip, the environment you're in. The colder and wetter it gets, you usually need to bring more layers. The longer you're out there, the more food and fuel you're gonna have. If you're aiming for technical objectives like climbing a peak or doing some rock climbing, you're gonna have more gear. And whether you're by yourself or in a group, that's gonna play a huge role. If you're by yourself, you're carrying everything you need. Where if you're with a partner or in a small group, you can divvy up some of that group gear, and I'll carry a part of the tent, you carry the poles, I'll carry some of the food, you carry the fuel. And that's a really good way to disseminate that gear amongst the group so you can travel more efficiently as a group together. That said, based on our conversation, someone that has a robust level of fitness and experience carrying a heavy pack should take the initiative to carry the heavier objects, because relative to the other person, it might make more sense. Not only are there variables that will affect your pack weight, but there's a lot of things that will affect your tolerance to that pack. Mainly your strength to weight ratio. So as I just mentioned, a stronger athlete is going to be able to absorb more of that weight without breakdown in their technique and setting themselves up for injury. And their history and their experience. Have they been rucking regularly? Do they lift weights? Have they been carrying a heavy pack previously before this expedition? And that can go a long way to, again, balancing things out amongst the group. Steep terrain, uneven rocks and snow, that can also make things more challenging. Of course, day in and day out on a longer trip can lead to this cumulative fatigue where we're under calorie, we're undernourished, maybe we're not sleeping well, we're a little dehydrated. Sometimes our packs start to feel heavier as the trip goes on, even though they're usually getting lighter because we're eating food and burning fuel. One exception was the Garibaldi Neve Traverse, where we were walking out in our trail runners with our skis and boots on our backpack because we ran out of snow, and that was one of the few trips where my pack actually ended heavier than when I started. All of this data and information is great, but how do you really know if you're ready to handle that backpack in the backcountry? Which is why we created this little flow chart to help at least give you some idea of, okay, I think I'm ready, or maybe I'm not ready and I need to spend a little bit more time training. So starting at the trailhead, we can start with our first option here of, can you hike pain-free body weight for at least 3 hours? If this is a yes, you're good to go. If it's a no, you need to reassess your objectives and invest a little bit more time training. If you can't walk pain-free for several hours, you are likely not ready to handle 20 or 30% of your body weight on the trail. If yes, then the next question is, are you planning on carrying 20% or more of your body weight? So if you're signed up for a summit climb of a Cascade volcano or a 9-day backpacking trip where your pack will be heavy at the start, if you're not planning on carrying 20% or more of your body weight, then you're probably good to go if you have that baseline of fitness. A little bit of strength training, of course, is going to help things that much more so you can really enjoy your time out there. But if you are planning on carrying more than 20% of your body weight, then we move to the strength and load tolerance assessment. And these are some key metrics that I look for in athletes to make sure that they are in fact ready to carry a heavy pack on uneven terrain through the mountains. The first metric to look at is, can you hold a single leg isometric weighted load for 30 to 60 seconds? This is really testing your baseline stability. If you can't do this, you need to get back to some joint stabilization work and really build that neuromuscular control. Because if our ankles and knees and hips and core are unstable, you're gonna crumple under a heavy pack. If you can do this, no problem, and you practice this regularly, we can move on to our step-up assessment. If you can perform 15 to 20 step-ups on a 16 to 18-inch box, more than 20% of your body weight in your backpack, roughly what you might anticipate carrying, without form breakdown, this is really key, meaning are your knees collapsing in? Can you keep good glute engagement? Are you having control on the way down? If you can do that, no problem, and that's your warm-up and your workout, you're definitely good to proceed. If not, you need to spend more time building that muscular endurance, and this doesn't have to happen necessarily doing step-ups. There's other tools that we'll implement later in this conversation. If you are ready to proceed, the final assessment is, can you deadlift or front squat your body weight 2 to 3 reps minimum with strong form? So as I mentioned, I'm 190 pounds. If I can deadlift 190 pounds with confidence, great form for 2 to 3 reps, that's a good indication that your body is going to be okay under a heavy load. Now, of course, none of this covers sport-specific training of actually carrying a heavy backpack in the mountains, but this is a really good assessment if you live in a place where you don't have the ability to do so. It's just another tool to assess your readiness. Now that we've built a solid understanding of what it means to actually carry a heavy backpack, here are some tangible things that you can implement now to start building that strength and stability so you can thrive under load. There are a lot of amazing exercises out there that you can and should be doing to enhance your performance when it comes to carrying a heavy backpack. And we have a lot of follow along workout videos on our channel that have all of these exercises and more. Explore those, practice them regularly, and start building that strength and confidence. We love using exercises like deadlifts or single leg deadlifts that utilize the hip hinge to strengthen the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back, and the core, all key structures in carrying a heavy pack. Any sort of step up exercise or lunge or deep split squat that challenges range of motion and likely taking a bigger step than you anticipate taking in the backcountry is a really good way to make sure you can handle a steep trail. Of course, upper body strength is really important when it comes to carrying a heavy backpack. It puts a lot of stress on our shoulders and upper traps. Even just picking the pack up off the ground requires some degree of arm strength. I love using farmer carries because those really challenge your grip strength, your upper back activation, your posture. Anything like pull-ups or bent over rows are amazing to keep building that muscular strength in the posterior chain in the upper body. And of course, we can't talk about training for carrying a heavy pack without core training. I love using weighted core exercises like planks or sit-ups under load. And again, that's the theme of this whole video, is we need to challenge ourselves with external resistance, because that's exactly what you're going to be doing out in the field. And we can't train with body weight alone to be successful carrying heavy packs. Now, when it comes to sport specific training, the gym's only going to get you but so far. You need to get out and move with a heavy pack, which we often call rucking. And this is very simply just loading up a pack and going for a training hike. If you don't have access to trails, you can easily replicate this on a Stairmaster or a treadmill, although those don't account for the downhill. Check out our How to Train for Hiking and Backpacking Without Mountains video, where we talk even more in depth about this. Now, rucking is an amazing tool to build strength and stability under load in a sport specific fashion. Your hips might get sore, your shoulders might get sore, which is great. Get all that soreness out of your body and familiarize your tissues with that sort of load. In both our Backpackers Bootcamp and Summit Strength program, we systematically increase the weight over the 12-week program to make sure you're able to handle up to 30% of your body weight when you're in the backcountry. And this is really key. Without this sport-specific training, it's kind of a roll of the dice whether or not you're going to excel when you're in those conditions doing the thing for real. This is the last formula I'll share with you today. We're looking at the L.E.A.D formula, L.E.A.D, the load estimation for adventure demand, to estimate our recommended maximum pack weight that you should be able to handle. So again, we're taking our body weight in pounds, multiplying it by our strength score. So this is a subjective assessment of how strong you think you are. 0.2 would be a lower level of fitness, maybe recovering from injury or not trained in a long time, up to 0.4, which is someone who trains very often, a lot of sport-specific training, logging a lot of hours, and feels very prepared for whatever comes their way. And then, of course, there's a spectrum in the middle, multiplying that by the terrain modifier based on the ruggedness of the trail. The lower the score, the more challenging the terrain. So 0.8 could be really punchy snow moving uphill, or loose scree coming downhill, all the way to 1.1, which would be really smooth, flat trail, well manicured, no rocks. And we have a few different examples here. So this is someone of moderate strength. They gave themselves a 0.3, which is kind of right in the middle. And on technical terrain, so 0.85, which is on the lower end of the terrain modifier, which approximates somewhere around a 41-pound pack would be ideal maximum pack weight. And here's someone who's relatively strong at 185 pounds on a smooth trail. Maybe they're guiding, maybe they've done this route a lot and they're confident that it's going to be flat and smooth, could carry up to 64 pounds. And then last example, lower strength on a very rugged trail. You can see that brings their estimated upper range of a pack weight down to just 30 pounds. If you're going to use this calculation, understand that there is some nuance to it. It's not perfect, but it does seem to provide a pretty good baseline of what to aim for. Always underestimate your strength and overestimate the challenge of the trail. So hopefully by the end of this conversation, you're understanding that how much your pack weighs is really irrelevant, and it's all about how prepared you are to carry it. I'm not saying that you can't cut your toothbrush in half or invest $50 into a titanium spoon, but you don't need those things. You don't need the latest and greatest, fanciest, most lightweight equipment. All you need to do is invest in yourself, invest in your future, take care of your body, and you can handle these things if you have the right approach. And on that note, if you need more structure in your approach to training, or you have a big objective coming up and you're intimidated about carrying a heavy pack, check out our website at outdooradventuretraining.com. We have 2 programs that are really built for this. Our Backpackers Bootcamp, which is built for backpackers going to spend time in the backcountry carrying packs, and our Summit Strength program, which is for mountaineers designed to carry heavy loads at high altitude. They're both amazing programs and they will get you to where you need to be. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, book a consultation on our website. I'd love to chat with you about your goals. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.